Hello guys, welcome to class and let's talk price in inflation. We're going to be talking about price inflation and before we go to the definition, I want you to know that price inflation may also be referred to as general price increase over time. So it is a crucial economic phenomenon that affects the purchasing power of consumers and the overall economic stability of a country. In Cameroon, for example, inflation can be attributed to various domestic and global factors such as changes in the supply and demand of goods, fluctuation in energy prices, and external economic factors. Understanding these causes, understanding the causes, the effects, the responses mechanisms to inflation is very important for assessing its impact on Cameroon's economy. So now, what is inflation? Inflation refers to the persistent increase in the general price level of goods and services in an economy over a period of time. It is typically measured as the annual percentage change in the Consumer Price Index (CPI), which tracks the prices of a basket of goods and services consumed by a household. Now, let's go and let's discuss the causes of inflation. What are the potential causes of inflation? Discussing the causes of inflation, it will be very pertinent, very important for us to first of all look at the two type of inflation. We have cost pull inflation and demand push inflation. So now let's start with demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation occurs when the demand for goods and services exceeds supply. That means when there is more demand for goods and services than supply, it causes the price of goods and services to upmount or to increase. So we call that one demand pull inflation. Inflation that's pulled by more demand over supply. Pushing this now, as when demand for goods and services exceeds supply, it pushes price level to increase. In Cameroon, for example, this is often driven by population growth. As the population grows, so we are now discussing the causes of demand pull inflation. The first cause is what? Population growth. Because when population grows, the demand for food, demand for services, demand for household goods, it increases. And as it increases, it causes it leads to pressure, and as a result now the price of goods and services will also increase, and that's because population has grown. Now another cause of inflation, demand pull inflation, is what? Increased government spending. When the government increases its spending on infrastructure, social program, or defense, the higher demand can lead to inflation. And also another cause of demand pull inflation is rising disposable income. Economic growth can lead to a higher disposable income, which drives consumer demand for goods and services. Now let's look at the second type of inflation, which is what? Cost push inflation. Cost push inflation happens when the cost of production increases. When the cost of production increases, it causes businesses to pass on the higher cost to produce their products, and then consumers will now have to purchase these goods at a higher price for the producers to also to have anything from there. you get. So in Cameroon, for example, factors contributing to the cost push inflations are increased foil, the prices of foil. When the price of foil increases for transport companies, and let's say when globally the price of oil increases, petroleum product increases, transportation, as a result now transportation becomes more expensive. Yes, transportation of raw materials to companies, and also from the companies, the transportation of the finished product to the market for sale and so on, it becomes difficult. As a result, price also increases, and this price is increasing because of what? Increase in the cost of production. So it's known as cost push inflation. There's also rising food prices, poor harvest, adverse weather conditions such as drought, a period of no rain. It causes harvest to be very poor. During time of drought, there's little or no harvest. Or disruption of agricultural production can lead to a high price of food products. And since food is a significant part of household consumption, this can contribute to inflation because people are forced to buy. People must eat in their various homes. But now the food is unlimited. The supply of food is limited. As a result, since people must eat, the price has to increase. Normally, the price will now increase. And then the cost of labor. If the wages of certain sector rises significantly, businesses may increase prices to cover higher cost of labor. For example, if in a company, work that was formerly done maybe by humans, they now now need to hire experts, hire machines. They need to employ the use of some machines to produce those same products. You see that the cost of labor is increased, and as a result now they need the amount of money they were using to pay their staff, they need now to invest to pay more money. They have increased the salary of their workers. As a result, they also have to increase the price of goods and their services so that they can cover the excesses. Now, let's discuss about the exchange rate as a cause of inflation. The inflation can also be caused by exchange rates. Cameroon is part of the CFA France zone. So Cameroon is part of the CFA franc zone, and Cameroon is also a member of the CEMAC. CEMAC is Central African Economic and Monetary Fund, CEMAC. Its currency CFA franc is pegged to the euro. Therefore, fluctuation in the value of the euro can impact the cost of imports and consequently inflation in Cameroon. Even though fluctuation has occurred on the value of euro, not of France, but now since France CFA is pegged to euro, if fluctuations occur on the value of euro, it is going to affect importation, and as a result, consequently now there will be inflation in Cameroon. A depreciation of the CFA francs could make imported goods more expensive, leading to what? Inflation. Now let's also talk about imported inflation. Since Cameroon imports a significant portion of its goods, particularly foil, food, and some kind of things, some kind of global commodities, if there's a change in price, if there's fluctuation in price, it can cause to inflation. Why? Because Cameroon has to import those things from abroad, maybe from Ukraine. But now, let's say there is a rise, there's an increase in the price of those things in Ukraine. It simply means that Cameroon will have to purchase that thing in Ukraine at a higher price. And it also means that in Cameroon now, that thing will be sold at a higher price. We can call that imported inflation. The inflation is not from here. It has been now imported. Inflation for other people who have imported it into Cameroon. Then we can talk of fiscal and monetary policy. Monetary policy, now let's say if maybe the Central Bank of Cameroon, the CEMAC, the BIAC in Cameroon, the central bank is what, the BIAC. If BIAC adopt policies that result in an increase in the money supply, it can lead to inflation. The more money circulating in the economy without a corresponding increase in goods and services can drive prices higher. Because now goods and services, they are not things to buy have not increased, but money has increased. So when BIAC, they are making their monetary policy, they also consider the goods and services that are available. Because if there is more money in circulation and there have little services and goods to be purchased, then it simply means price will increase. People will not have money and leave it in their pocket. People love spending money. So that most of the time when you have money in your pocket, you want to spend it. So prices have to increase because there's money. L'argent dehors. We always notice that when the month comes to an end, the demand for goods and services always increase because people have money in their pocket. By the 15, 18, people are suffering. But when money comes, once salaries are available, people begin to spend. All right. So the fiscal policy also is a cause of inflation. Exactly. Now let's look at the effects of inflation. What are some potential effects of inflation? Number one, reduced purchasing power. Inflation erodes the purchasing power of consumers. As the prices of goods and services increases, consumers can buy fewer items with the same amount of money. This can lead to a decline in the living standards, especially for individuals with fixed income or with one income stream. Now, number two, impact of inflation on saving and investment. There are some individuals that when they receive their salary, part of their salary go for investment and some go for saving. But now during inflation, when prices of things have increased, it simply means that as inflation reduces the real value of savings. For example, if the rate of inflation is higher than the interest rate on saving accounts, individuals they are going to lose money in real term. This can discourage saving and affect the long-term financial stability of individuals. Now, for businesses, inflation can increase the cost of production, which might lead to higher prices of consumers and then for higher prices for consumers, right? And then if inflation is unpredictable, then it can create uncertainty, discouraging investment and long-term business planning. Now, what is also now the effect of inflation on poverty? For poorer segments of the population, inflation can have a more severe impact on them. As prices increases, individuals with limited income, particularly those in rural areas who rely heavily on agricultural production and basic foodstuff, they may struggle to meet up their basic needs. And this can increase poverty rates and it can also cause income inequality. Now, let's also look at a consequence of inflation on wage price spiral. Inflation can lead to a wage price spiral. I'll explain what it means. It's a situation where workers, they demand higher wage to keep up with rising prices. That's what we mean by wage price spiral. When the prices of things that have increased and you are still paying your workers the same amount. Let's say you are paying your workers from 80,000 to 240,000, for example. If that's the wage range for your workers, by the time the price of things have increased, you should also consider when you are paying them, you can pay them now from 100,000 to maybe 270,000. to also enable them to be able to meet up with their basic needs. So inflation can cause a wage price spiral. If employers meet these demands by raising wages or the salary of their employees, it increases production cost. So this increases production cost, and which are often passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. This cycle can perpetuate inflation. Now, what about economic planning? Inflation distorts or disturbs economic planning. It's good to know that. Then now, how can we manage inflation in Cameroon? This is a very important point that we are going to be talking about. How to manage inflation in Cameroon? What are the measures that can be taken to manage inflation in Cameroon? So I will be saying many things here. We'll talk of the monetary policy by BIAC. Yeah, a Bank of Central African States, BIAC, which is responsible for monetary policy in Cameroon and other CEMAC member states. So the BIAC can use several tools to manage inflation. The first tool, they can use interest rate adjustment. By raising or lowering interest rate, BIAC can influence inflation. Higher interest rates reduce the money supply by making borrowing more expensive. This can help control inflation. On the other hand, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are still talking about how to manage inflation in Cameroon. We have discussed the rate adjustment, interest rate adjustment by BIAC, and we said that higher interest rates reduce the supply of money by making borrowing more expensive, which can help control inflation. And then on the other hand, lower rates stimulate spending but can increase inflationary pressures. Then now, another monetary policy is open market operations. BIAC can also buy or sell government securities to regulate the money supply, and this is going to influence inflation. Now let's also talk about fiscal policies by the government. The Cameroonian government can adopt a range of fiscal measures to control inflation. Number one, reducing government expenditure. And number two, taxation. If the government increases taxes, increasing taxes can reduce disposable income, curbing consumer spending, and reducing demand pull inflation. So it's a recommendation that the government can increase taxes. And increasing the taxes is also going to have long-term effects. Let's now look at another recommendation, which is addressing supply side constraint. One way to combat cost push inflation is by addressing supply side issues, such as improving local agricultural production, investing in energy infrastructure, and encouraging domestic production to provide dependence on imports. Then we can also talk of exchange rate management. Yes, as Cameroon is part of this CFA franc zone, inflationary pressures stemming from exchange rate fluctuations can be mitigated through coordinated effort within the CEMAC region to maintain the stability of the CFA francs. Yes, so now let me conclude by saying that inflation in Cameroon, while moderate compared to some other African countries, is a key economic issue that affects the purchasing power, the savings and the investment decisions of citizens and businessmen. The government and BIAC work together to manage inflation through a combination of monetary policies and fiscal policies, and efforts to address supply side constraints. Now, however, inflation remains a challenge, especially for the most vulnerable segments of the population. Managing inflation effectively requires balanced economic policies, attention to structural issues, and coordination with the broader global economic trends that impact Cameroon. So here we are going to end our lesson today on the topic price inflation, and then you have questions, you drop them. See you in the next lesson. Thank you for taking this course. Bye.